Again, everybody. Welcome to the Lakeview Inn. I'm Anthony, if you don't know me. I've been posting some information, of course, on our Facebook, mostly pictures and snapshots of what we do here at the inn or what we serve our breakfasts for our guests. But this evening, we are preparing to prepare some cranberry orange scones that we make here at the inn for tomorrow's breakfast. So today I'll share with you how that process works for us here at the Lakeview Inn, and then tomorrow we'll bake them off. Since I like to bake them fresh, we do not want to have them stale or day old, so we'll bake them off tomorrow morning. But for right now, we're going to get the process started. Give me a second. I'm going to get the camera back into view where you can see the counter and not necessarily me. So for starters, I'll share with you what we have as far as the ingredients. We have our flour, so I have about 2 cups of all-purpose flour. Usually I like to mix it with half flour and half pastry flour, but today we're going to use just all-purpose flour. We have half a cup of granulated sugar. We have 3/4 of a teaspoon of fine salt. We have 2 teaspoons of baking powder. Make sure that your baking powder is active by checking the date. I have some cutie oranges. I'm using the zest as well as the actual small segments of orange. We put them in the food processor, give them a little pulse, but I like to have a little bit of orange in there as well. And since we're using the orange and the cranberry, I don't want to overwhelm things, so I'm only using half a teaspoon of vanilla that we'll be using. And then we have a cup of the dried cranberries. If you'd like, you can soak them for about 15-20 minutes to plump them up a little and then put them in your scones. I like to use them dry because if you wet them too much, it really will mess with the texture of the scone. So I'd rather just have that bite of that cranberry in there. Not to mention, since we're going to be chilling this for about overnight, it'll moisten that up enough and that'll be just perfect, so you get those different textures as well. And then we have half a cup of cream. And then over here, we have a full half a cup or a full stick of butter. If you have margarine, you can use margarine. Keep in mind that that's going to make a softer dough. So if you can use that butter, use the butter, keep it chilled. If you use margarine, chop it up in chunks and then freeze it. You can do this by hand, or you can do it in the food processor. We're going to use a food processor, but even with the food processor, you have to be careful because you want to keep everything as chilled as possible. If you have warm hands and they just run hot, use a food processor. Either way, we're still going to be using our hands to put it all together and push it together into its disc before we cut it. But keep in mind that we need to work a little quickly because it's going to get warmer, and you want those layers of cold butter in between that pastry so that you have flaky pastry. When the butter melts, that steam will expand the pastry, giving you a light and airy pastry. You don't want it dense, so you don't want to over mix it as well. So first things first, what I usually do is I'm going to go ahead and I have my blade. I'm using that, not using a dough hook, but if you have a dough hook for your food processor, that'll be great, use that. But I'm going to be putting in our all-purpose flour. Get that in there. Then I'll be using, of course, we'll put in our sugar, our salt. We'll put in our baking powder. So we got our dry ingredients in there. Got that going. I'm going to put this down and I'm just going to let it go on low just to mix it up. I don't want to mix it up too much because those blades will heat up the flour, which will in turn could melt the butter as well. Now what I usually do, instead of adding this, I can add this with the cream. You can do that. I usually just add it in general, just add my seasonings or my flavorings. I'll add the orange bits as well, and I'll give that a couple of pulses to really chop up those oranges. I try to hold off on the cranberries yet because I want the bits of cranberries to be a little chunky. I don't want them too mushed. So then what we'll do now is we'll add our cold butter into our mixture. There you go. And we'll give it a couple of pulses. We don't want it to be ground in there. Remember, we want those chunks of butter so that as they melt, that steam builds and makes that flaky pastry. So we'll pulse this about 5-6 times. I'll do 5 times. I'll leave it alone because now I'm going to add my cranberries. You can add the cranberries afterwards, meaning when you put it together. I just put them in this way because I don't like to work the dough as much. So I'll do a couple of pulses with this. That's what I'll do on the cranberries. Again, not to get it too mushed up. And then of course we have our 1/2 cup of whole cream. I'm using whole cream. You can use 1/2 and 1/2. You can use whole milk. You can use regular milk, whatever you'd like. I prefer to use cream, whether it's 1/2 and 1/2 or whole cream. Now this I'm going to go on ahead and run until it starts coming together. This is where I'm going to stop. Even though it is not all together, that's perfectly fine because it'll come together when we use our hands to get it together. If that makes sense. Push this to the side. And you can just pull this out. It's going to be chunky. That's perfectly fine. Okay, scrape out. Don't leave all the goodies in there. Get that scraped out in there. Push this aside. Now, as you can see, it's still moist. We still have chunks of cranberry, and that's what you really want. You want the chunks of cranberry. It's still mixed in there, but it's still in bits. Now, you're not going to need this for the most part. If it's dry, you can add a few drops of cream to moisten it up, but you just really want to press it together. You're trying not to knead it, and you don't want to use your hands if they're super hot. So if you have to cool them off in cold water, come back and do this, do it, but work quickly. Again, especially if it's summer and it's hot, you want to make sure that you are using cooler hands. Once you have it patted out, depending on what you want to use, let me pull out that there, and my little disc here. For this recipe, you can get about 6 nice side scones. You can get 8 if you really want to push it. You can make them in different shapes. I like to make mine in just wedges, traditional. Let me get a little flour here, just for my hands. I don't want to add any more, a lot of flour in here because it'll dry it out. So I do want it. I turn it around, nice. Good there. And then what I'll do is I'll press it down. And for tomorrow, since I want my discs to be a little larger, a little higher, you want to either get it about 1.5 inches, 2 inches thick. If you like a thicker scone, that's great. Keep in mind that the thicker the scone, that the smaller your discs are going to be, so it depends. So if you want more discs, if you want 6 discs, if you want 8 discs, then you're going to want it to be a little thinner. Okay, and then I usually just give it a roll just to get the top smooth. Now tomorrow what I'll do as well is before I bake this, I will sprinkle it with some large crystal sugar. I'll wash it first with either a milk or an egg wash. Before I cut it, I'll sprinkle it with some large sugar and sugar crystals, and then we'll cut it into wedges, and then we'll bake them. When we bake them, when we cut the wedges, if you want a more tender crumb, you want the edges to be fairly close to each other. So what I mean by that is that once we cut it, I'll pull the wedges away, giving them about 1/4 of an inch on each, in between each, and that'll give it more of a tender crumb. And then we'll bake it in the oven for about 20 minutes. So I will push it, good to go. Maybe I want them a little thicker. I'm thinking maybe I want about 4 scones out of here. Okay. And that's really it. Then you get your pan, and for example, I have my pan here. Let's just put this here. I use my bench scrape there. All right, so I have my bench, got it there. My scone is on there, and then I'm going to grab some plastic wrap. If you notice, it took us all of what? Maybe 5 to 7 minutes to even get the entire mixture done. I'm going to cover it. I usually tuck in my edges because I don't want my scone dough to dry out. And if you see, remember when I pushed it's a little even there? That's when you can use this and get your rolling pin. Just get it nice and smoothed out. Some people, if you have a scone mold, that's the round pan with the wedges in it, you can press this dough into that scone mold. Don't forget to, if you do that, don't forget to spray your pan. Here, we're just going to chill it, cut it in wedges, and then put it in the oven. Now, you do want to chill it. One of the reasons why you want to chill it is you want the wedges to keep their shape. If you were to bake this off right away, and we can, then they're going to spread out more. And we really want that height in that scone because it keeps that tenderness in there. The thinner it is, makes it more crispy. So if you like a crispy scone, you can definitely bake it off right away. At a minimum, you want it to chill in the refrigerator for about an hour. In fact, what I would do is I'd put it inside the freezer for that hour, and then when you take them out, go ahead and wedge them and then put them in your oven at 375 degrees for a good 20 minutes. Or if you have a thermometer, about 200 degrees, and you should be good to go. Keeping in mind that baked items, when you pull them out of the oven, they're going to continue to bake for a few minutes. So keep that in mind, because scones, just like cakes, if you over bake them, they will get dry, especially since they're hot when they come out. They're still going to be cooking for a few minutes, and so you don't want it to be dry. So we're going to put this in the fridge since we're going to bake it for tomorrow. Tomorrow we'll turn around, we'll pop it in the oven tomorrow morning. This part of breakfast is over. This is going to be our first course for tomorrow's breakfast, and then we will come back tomorrow morning. So thanks again. Just to go over it real quick, it's a cranberry orange scone. We use 2 cups of flour, half a cup of sugar. We use 3/4 teaspoon of salt, 2 teaspoons of baking powder. We used a cup of cranberries. I don't think I told you that. We used about 1.5 teaspoons of the zest. You can use just the zest, but if you do use the orange segments, be careful. Yes, it adds a great flavor to it, but if it's extremely juicy, if you have too much liquid, that can play into the texture of your dough. We used half a cup of butter, and then we used 1/2 teaspoon of vanilla, as well as half a cup of cream. We blended the flour and the dry ingredients together just a bit to get them mixed. You could also sift them if you'd like. We then added the flavorings. We added the orange, we added the vanilla, we pulsed it a couple times. We then added the cream and butter and the cranberries, and then we put it on the counter. We just blended it in the food processor just when it started to come together, not into a dough ball. That's too far, because we want those flakes with the butter, and we want that steam to really help it rise up. Then we pushed our dough together, made it into a disc. This is about what? Oh, we're talking about 1 inch, 1.5 inches, maybe. Let's take a look-see. This is my fancy ruler here. It's about 1 inch, because if we take that little bit off there, that's about 1/4. So we have about 1 inch height, so they'll rise nicely. And we'll get about 4 discs, 4 scones out of here. So We'll see you tomorrow. Good morning. It is the next morning. It's about 6 o'clock. We didn't need to get up super early today, but as you can see, we rested our cranberry orange scone. It's nice and firm. Now you can bake this from frozen if you forget to take it out and put it in the refrigerator overnight. I usually take it out the night before, put it in the freezer if I've made it ahead, put it in the fridge if I've made it ahead, and then we'll go ahead and bake it off. But it's fine if it is frozen. You'll just need to put it in and allow at least 3 to 4 extra minutes for it to bake. So we have it on this tray. I'm going to take it off this tray and bake it on a larger one. Again, you saw yesterday when we had it, it was pretty flexible because it was soft. Now it is nice and firm. I love it because you can see the different textures and the different berries. And if you take a good look at it, you can even see the specks of orange in there. That gives it a great flavor as well. So we don't want to keep holding it too long, so we'll put that there. We'll move this pan out of the way. And then, like I said, you can usually get about 6 pieces. It's pretty, like I said, we made it a little thicker because I wanted them to be a little taller, so they'll definitely grow from there. And then I usually use my bench scraper to go ahead and divide these up. If you do use a bench scraper, these have a pretty sharp edge. Try not to press so hard, even though it's firm. You will cut through your sill pat as I have done before. So we also have the sugar, and this sugar here, let me wipe my hands. This is a large crystal sugar. It's the crunchy sugars. I don't know if you can see that close, but as you can see, it's the larger crystals, which I like to use. In fact, I found some previously that were larger, which I love. I love that crunch. If I don't put a sugar crystal on them or any type of coating, then what I will do is I'll make a glaze and put like a vanilla glaze on there, or maybe a citrus glaze. Today we're just going to use the sugar, but before we put that on, we are going to do an egg wash. And an egg wash is to hold the sugar crystals on, as well as give it a little golden color, maybe a little golden sheen on there. One thing you want to do, and the reason it looks so liquidy, is because for an egg wash, you take an egg, if you have enough of that, and then you add maybe a teaspoon of water, give it a mix, and then you strain it. One of the reasons why you want to strain it is because you want to remove any of the eggy bits in there that maybe didn't get mixed in when you whisked it, because then you'll have chunks of congealed scrambled egg on your pastry. Not only does it not look good with the chunks on there, but it also doesn't give a good feel in your mouth as well. So let's get our pastry brush here, and we're going to go on ahead and we are going to just brush this. I like to do this part before I put the sprinkle on. Makes it just so much easier, I think, especially when you cut it. Now, if you do not have a sill pat, you can use a greased sheet, cookie sheet. You can use parchment paper if you have that. Okay, so we put that on there. I'm going to put this aside. And then I'm going to just sprinkle it generously with the sugar crystals, so to give it a nice bite. You can put as much as you want. Don't be stingy. There you go. Get that going. Nice in there. Sprinkle it all in there. I usually give it a little pat. How many? A little more. Get some more in there. Otherwise, you just don't get enough. And they're not really sweet. All right, so I like to get it so that I can see quite a few on there. All right, so that's good. Give it a pat there. Dust my hands. And if you recall, I said I wanted to get about 4 scones out of here. So let's get this. See if I can get it as halved as possible. I'm pressing down, but not a lot. I just want to get that beginning cut down. It's good there. And then I want to see if I can get these equally without putting my head into the camera. That's good enough. All right. And if you recall, if you want a more tender edge, then you leave them close together. I like to put my spatula and just pull it out a bit. Giving them room to grow, they'll end up touching when they're done baking, but they're still close enough to be tender. And if I was doing 8 or if I was doing 6, I'd be doing the same thing. Let's take a look at this though. So it's full of cranberries. You see the layers. That will steam up to make a flaky pastry, because as the butter melts, the steam will separate those layers. Not a lot, but enough to make them flaky, make them light. And there you have it. Now we're going to put these in the oven and we're going to bake them off at 375 degrees for approximately 20 minutes, give or take. Keep in mind, all ovens are different, so know your oven. If you're not sure or your oven may be out of calibration, then always you can pick up a oven thermometer for like $4 or $5 at the store, and it's better to be safe than sorry. And then as well as that, check it about 2 or 3 minutes before to make sure that it's done. Keep in mind, remember yesterday I told you that baked items will continue to cook for a few more minutes after you take them out of the oven. And those few minutes can turn a nice pastry when you first decided it was cooked to being dry and overbaked in a matter of a few minutes. So we're going to go and put this in the oven. We'll let it bake up, and then we'll come back and show you our finished cranberry scone. All right, as you can see, our scone is baked. Pan's still a little hot here. We baked it at 200, up until an internal temperature of 200 degrees. That gives it a nice tender crumb. Notice the edges are brown, but they're not dark brown. You don't want them brown. You do want a springy. See how it still springs? I don't want to press it too much. Remember when I said it took it out of the oven after 20 minutes. I did check it after about 19, and now as you can see, it is baked. I did use an internal probe or thermometer just to make sure it was at 200. Took it out, and then it'll continue cooking for the next couple of minutes, but then it'll be good to go, and then we're ready to serve it. As you can see, we got 4 scones out of there, but I definitely could have gotten, like I normally do, if I had 8 guests here in the inn, then I would have done 8 portions. These are pretty big. I should have done 6. And then what you can also do is, if you are not using all of them, instead of baking them out, what you can do is that when you get your disc and when you portion them out prior to baking, you can make sure you freezer wrap or double wrap them, and then freeze the portions that you do not use that morning, and then bake them when you're ready to use them. So it's sort of like you're prepared. You just pull them out, pop them in the oven, makes your kitchen fragrant, smells great, tastes even better. So, hope you enjoyed the video. We'll see you later.